Welcome to the Gun Cranks audio podcast, the audio-only version of the Gun Cranks YouTube channel. The Gun Cranks are one of the internet's most unique gun talk shows, and it's anybody's guess where the discussion will go each week. Each episode is packed full of information and gun fun as they discuss and maybe even cuss their way through the topic at hand. The Gun Cranks are brought to you by FMG Publications, the publisher of American Handgunner and Guns magazines, along with AmericanCop.com. If you'd like to see the Gun Cranks face-to-face, head over to our YouTube channel of the same name. But if not, get ready for another great episode of the Gun Cranks.
Before we go live, you said last week, and you can't say that, okay? I mean, that's
Roy, you ignorant slut. You can't say
you can't say slut. Oh, time out. Hi there. We're live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Gun Cranks Live. It's Wednesday at 8 p.m., and we are your Gun Cranks. I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, along with my boss, Roy Huntington, our publisher, and Tom McHale, the editor of American Handgunner. Hey, guys.
Hey, guys.
We're guys, right? What do you want me to say?
I was going to say, hey, Brent, but I forgot about Roy. So
I'm always amazed we have more than 3 people listening and watching. I mean, it's like, really?
You know, we were talking. It's been incredible. I'm getting as much mail about this show as the whole magazine thing. It's been wonderful and incredible.
Hate mail?
Well, there's been I have noticed the the occasional weird cranky ones, they're getting worse. Not in number, but in content. But that's a whole other topic.
Do you have a blankie? It's kind of hurting my feelings.
Oh, no, I'm telling you. I think I sent you one before we went live, and
I did, but I used that one up already. I mean,
oh, okay.
Well, yeah, it's the political correctness crowd. Yeah. I think they're suffering from the fact that we're essentially not. And if it wasn't for rules that we have to abide by, thank you very much. The world public, we're just regular guys like everybody who's watching and listening right now, and so we slip out a bad word every once in a while, and we're not always politically correct, I think.
Wait a minute, I have a question. When you say we slip out a bad word, do you really mean you, or
that would technically be me? I believe that was
I was going to say
participle version of you actually means me. Yeah.
Well, but before we get into our topic, which is range etiquette kit. We'll probably argue about that word for 15 minutes. But Roy, I bet when you were a police officer, you probably got called into the office a few times over your choice of language. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, we were chatting about that, I mean, let's just, to be politically incorrect, when I was working in the field one day, we were working what we used to call B girls, which was in California means they were prostitutes, and it had to do with a section of the penal code that was solicitation. And so I was helping the team work them and get them off the street and all that, and I mentioned on the police radio that I found some, and I used the W word,
on the radio.
Don't say it.
On the radio, referring to the ladies of ill repute. And there was a kind of a pregnant pause. As Brent was saying, you always know when you cross the line. It's like, oh, there's that line, because the radio goes dead silent. and then there's just a little pause, and then the dispatcher came out and said, Unit 121, John, please call the watch commander immediately. And it's like, and in those days, there were no locators on the radios. We were all just had radios, right? You couldn't tell who was who. And if somebody had a commentary about what was said on the radio, they would all click their microphones, right? Click, 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 click.
Yep.
And so, of course, after that, there was a flurry of microphone clicking all over the place. So he said, Roy, I understand, but you're not allowed to say that on the radio. And there was no way.
You're our boss, but you are on double secret probation here on Gun Cranks. So
be on
your best behavior, little mister.
I will. So I promise.
Well, our topic tonight is how not to get kicked off the gun island, which is the range. And I want to do like a Survivor logo or something, but I just didn't have time, and I'm graphically challenged. But basically tonight we want to talk about, especially if you're a less experienced shooter, there's Tom likes to say, it's kind of like golf. First time you go to the golf course, you don't necessarily know how to act, and you kind of do some dumb stuff out of ignorance rather than malice. And I know my way around a gun range, but yeah, if you take me out to a golf course, I do things like, scream as somebody's putting and, just the normal kind of stuff. So we're going to talk about some of those things you shouldn't do so you're not that guy or gal. And they say, maybe you need to go to your car right now. So
you know what this episode is? Yeah. This is charm school for shooters.
Yeah, you're right. And, let's start right from the time they leave their house, so they could be charming through the entire day going to the range. Yeah,
I didn't mean to interrupt, but that just struck me as really funny. Charm school for shooters. That's the episode title.
It's really true. Tom, you remember when you wrote the article for me a long time ago in Handgun?
I do.
It was kind of range etiquette, and I thought it was great, and it generated a lot of reader response saying, so, as a new shooter, thank you for telling me, or as an experienced shooter, thank you for reminding new shooters about those things. So, well, let's start right from the time you are getting ready to go to the range. And so, let's say you are a really new shooter and you've bought your gun and passed the background test and all that other kind of stuff. You've got your hearing protection. You've got your box of ammunition you're going to shoot at the range. You have a little lockable case that you've got your gun in. You've made sure that it's unloaded and the slide is locked back, right? Or the cylinder, if, is at least cracked open a little bit if possible. And now what do you do? Now what's next other than the scary thing of go to the range? So what's next is make sure you're familiar with your local laws about how you transport firearms. Usually your safest not to put the ammo in with the gun. So keep your gun in the lockbox in your trunk. Keep the ammunition someplace else. Some states actually specifically say the ammunition has to be in the passenger compartment and the gun has to be in the trunk. So you have to check your own state. And so now once you get to the range, Tom, what do you do then?
You know what I think is a good tip, and it's not necessarily intuitive, is keep your guns in the case. Always transport in some kind of case, a shooting bag, a case, a hard case, whatever, but keep it there until you actually get to the firing line, right? Think of a shooting bench where there's a seating area behind and a shooting bench up front. You don't want to be uncasing and opening guns and pulling them out, back behind the shooting line. In most cases, at most ranges, the correct way to handle that is bring the whole case up to the shooting table, put it down there when the range is hot, open it up, get your gun out, muzzle down range, and everyone will love you for that.
That's a good point. But now, let's say now you're the shooter, you carry your bag with your gun and your ammo and your hearing protection, your eye protection. You go to the counter at the range. So what would normally happen there? Take it away.
It depends on the range. A lot of indoor ranges will want to see what you have. They may want to look inside and just kind of check things out from a safety perspective, or to make sure that whatever firearms you brought aren't overpowered for their backstop. So don't be surprised if that happens, if staff wants to kind of see your ammo and what you brought.
Yeah, a lot of times they want to double, triple check that you're unloaded because as I've certainly been in ranges and gun stores with ranges where people have brought a gun in that was loaded. I worked behind the counter of a gun store one time, and I can't tell you the number of times people brought guns in for me to look at for some reason. And you run the bolt and clink, out comes a round from the chamber. Yeah. And they just go, oh yeah, I'm sorry it was loaded. I forgot to tell you. Yeah, okay, really.
And what did we talk about last week? All guns are always loaded.
Yeah. As Brent said,
somebody was paying attention. How about that?
The four firearm safety rules apply now more than ever because you're at the range. So usually at the range, though, you'll get checked in. They'll either take a deposit from you or take your charge card or something. Some ranges want you to buy their targets and their ammo, so you might want to check on that beforehand if you've got special targets you want to use. But they'll brief you on the rules and regulations of the range. And just remember, Tom's exactly right. It's a real etiquette kind of charm school. In other words, be polite and be, very thoughtful. And so then at some point you'll go into the range bay itself. And then, Brent, you want to take over from there?
Well, I was going to say, the big thing is, as we've discussed on safety, is don't get flustered. You're going to be really nervous because you're not comfortable. You don't know what your expectations are and all that. So don't make a dumb mistake because you get mentally overloaded. The advice always is, if you don't know what you're doing, just stop, just take it slow. And I think, humility is not a bad thing here. If you don't know what to do, if you don't know what the procedure is, how do I get to the range, or when do I load, or where do I load? Just ask. Just ask nicely, and you will find that most shooters are extremely happy to mentor people, even if they're not the people working there. There may be, if I'm standing there and, I don't know where to go, here, let me show you. Let me show you how. So it's a wonderful resource. Your fellow shooters, you may run into that one guy or gal, but you probably, there's 99 others that are excited to help a new shooter, get going and have a positive experience. So once you get to a point, you're ready to shoot, you've got your gun ready. The next thing is going to be targets. And I think in my own experience, that's probably where I've seen more stupid human tricks and more dangerous human tricks than probably maybe any other facet of the entire experience. And it's really pretty simple. Understand how the targets work and when you're supposed to do something. On an indoor range, they probably got runners that, you'll put them up at your stall and go down. I shoot a lot, mostly on outdoor ranges. So at some point, a human probably has to go down there and put a target up. And I think Tom was telling the story, maybe last week, about they had a gal on the line with a telescopic sighted rifle, and one guy was standing there, and she go, "Yeah, okay, I see. Now move that way." And he's like, "Well, you shift your aim." And really, I mean, don't fall into that kind of stuff. And you know why they did that? Because, well, the gun's not loaded.
Yeah. And nobody told them, and most ranges, all ranges that I know of that are indoor ranges, if you're new, you just have to say, "I'm new. I've never done this before. Could you come show me?" And usually they'll have a staff member who will actually come out with you, get you organized, show you how to use the electronics target turner backer things, and all that stuff, and pretty much get you up to speed. And take advantage of that.
I think it's the single most important etiquette move there is we've kind of touched on it, and Brent talked about it, is being humble and asking for help. People will be thankful if you ask a question, if you're not sure about anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, while we're still talking about targets, and again, I hate to keep touching on last week's show, but you probably need to go check it out, because we covered a lot of this, and safety and range etiquette are really intertwined so much. But I think it's important. This is where we insert. And even if you're a brand new novice, if you see somebody walking down range as it's still hot, to go put a target up because, well, it's okay, I'm out of the line of fire, say something, yell, stop, halt, ceasefire, whatever you choose. But everybody is a safety officer, even the most raw, inexperienced shooter. And this, I actually think this goes like quadruple for public ranges, because you have such a wide range of skill levels there. And, and it's nothing against new shooters, because we were all there at some point, but they do tend to make a few more mistakes. They tend to make more safety mistakes. So everybody's got to be really, really cognizant of safety. And as Roy said, everybody's a safety officer in those kind of situations.
Well, a lot of times with new shooters, especially, you'll see a bay or two down from you. There might be 3 or 4, young dude kind of guys with their Glocks. And there's usually a lot of jumping around and hand high-fiving, and dudes and stuff like that. Yeah. And all that's great, except, they've got to stay focused. And so most ranges have a very clear set of rules. Thou shalt not, period. Yeah. And then you just have to, they're usually posted right there behind the firing line. Keep your muzzle down range, finger outside of the trigger. If you step away from the line, the slide should be locked back. Your gun should be unloaded with the muzzle pointing down range. There's usually like a yellow safety line painted behind the firing positions. And so if for some reason they need to close the range for something, they want the guns unloaded, actions open, and everybody has to stay behind that line. And to reaffirm what Tom was saying is, don't be fussing with your gun back on the counter behind you, because every once in a while, I've been there and you look behind you at some guy's muzzle and with his with his gun behind you, and it's like, don't be surprised if the counter guy up front, he gets on the PA and says, cease fire, when he sees some safety violation. So
the voice of God comes from on high and says, everyone cease fire. I was just sitting here thinking, trying to go through all this, and I've actually come up with an etiquette thing as opposed to, there's a safety component too, but it's more a matter of etiquette, and it's exactly like golfing. When you're on the line and you're doing your thing, great. But if I'm in the next lane over, especially if I'm shooting, say, a precision rifle and I'm really focused on doing everything right, that's not the time to go, hey, buddy, did you see my shot over there? That's don't intrude on another person who's actively in the act of firing, because that creates all kinds of issues. And it kind of goes back to what Roy and I learned at the police academy, which is stand fast on the line. Once you're actually to your shooting point, it's the games and the fun are kind of over. You need to focus on the task at hand. It should be fun, and you should be having fun and enjoyment. And if, in your group, you want to, discuss things at some point, but once you're really ready to start shooting, you got to get serious and focus. There's only you and the target and the gun. And when you get in that mode, as everybody else on the line, you don't want the guy coming up saying, hey, that's a nice looking gun. Where'd you get it?
Yeah.
There's, I think, another thing that's important is a lot of ranges have rules concerning the kind of ammo you can shoot or how fast you can shoot. Tom, you want to address that a little bit?
What, the speed of shooting?
Yeah, you know how ranges are. You can't draw from the holster sometimes,
Yeah, and they're all different. I mean, some now, will allow that, but most indoor ranges are ixnay on rapid fire and drawing from holster altogether. So, that's stuff you want to know. And going back to the don't be afraid to ask questions and read the rules and say, I have not been here before. What do I need to know?
Yeah.
Nothing at all wrong with that.
And I think that's another important point that we've kind of been skirting around here is it's their house. If you don't like that, I can't rapid fire, well, then leave, because it's their range and there's reasons behind those rules, and it may feel like they're imposing on you, but it's their house. And if you had those rules at your private range, you wouldn't want anybody, breaking them either. So it's their house, their rules.
You know how you see the reasons for those rules? You look up, especially at an indoor range, you look up. And then you can't start counting holes in the ceiling and in the tracks that hold the targets down there. That's where those rules came from.
Well, and the sides too.
And from the sides, yeah. There's a couple of things is that, remember, if you're listening to this and you're a new shooter, then you're a new shooter. And so if you have the time to get to the range like that, you need to take that opportunity to begin to practice, hopefully, what you've been being taught, watching, YouTube videos or watching this silly show, things like that. But so take your time. It's not a big hurry about how many rounds can I shoot in the next half hour. If you go to the range and you have 25 rounds and that's all you shoot over the next hour, chances are pretty good you've really worked on your form, on trigger control, on sight picture, and don't put up a target and shoot 100 shots in it, because you don't know what you're doing at that point. All you're doing is just shooting at a group of bullet holes. I'm a strong proponent of buy lots of targets. Targets are cheap. Okay. And they'll tell you a lot. And so if you're new to shooting and you're new to going to the range, buy half a dozen targets. I don't care if you're just going to shoot 25 or 30 shots today, but shoot 6 or 8 or 10 shots and then take that target down and take a minute and look at it. Like Brent says too, you find the nice shooter next to you and says, hey, all my groups are down low and to the left. What do you think that means? And enjoy the time with you. It's not a frantic attempt to make as much empty brass as you can.
Yeah. And I think that hits on a point that most instructors will tell you, and there are some exceptions, but most of the instructors that I've trained under and I really respect basically operate under kind of the same philosophy, which is every round you put down range should have a purpose. Now, the purpose may be just to have fun and, shoot an old pot or pan or hit a gong or whatever, but you really need to have a reason for pulling that trigger and be cognizant of that. Just going to the range and just blasting rounds downrange can be fun, but with ammo in such short supply right now and time so limited, I think at some point you at least need to kind of be thinking why you're there instead of I'm just going to go and blast a bunch of ammo. You will become a better shooter over time if you try to get some training value of being on the line. And again, I'm not saying don't have fun. We all do that. And especially you go out to grandpa's farm or the old gravel pit, and you plank away. But even there, okay, I'm going to work on my trigger control, or I'm going to really focus on the front sight today. And keep in mind why you're there, aside from just having a whole bunch of fun.
There's a couple safety things too that you need to remember, because I've done it. We've all done this. Is that you're fussing with your gun and you drop the magazine, and the magazine falls just in front of the line, and you think, oh well, I'll just bend down and reach underneath and get it. You'll probably get the bad, the mean man who's yelling at you on the PA. And so the thing to do there is get the broom or wait until there's a ceasefire, which they usually cease fire pretty regularly. Every 20 minutes, every half hour, everybody just stops. And then there's a little bit of cleanup. You can pick up the things you dropped and stuff like that. So if it's really important, then put your hand up like this or something and say ceasefire. Just, you're the safety officer, and then pick up your $5,000 watch that you dropped or something like that. The other thing, and this is my biggest beef, is people will, it's like if they're shooting downrange, okay, and then now they're reloading their gun, they turn it sideways. And so now they're fussing with their gun or running the slide or stuff like that. Well, you're pointing it at the guy next to you. And I'm amazed at the people who just seem to be oblivious to that. Yep. So you keep your brain on when you're there.
Hey, I've got one that's kind of tangential to that. It's a good pointer that's not entirely intuitive. And that is to think of the shooting line as a line. Envision all the muzzles in a line. And where you especially have to pay attention to this is outdoor ranges, where there are tables where you can sit and shoot or stand, up at the line itself. And what happens is with handguns, people are standing at the line, but then somebody shows up and stands behind their table with a handgun. So the unintuitive part is the muzzle still pointed at the backstop in a safe direction. It's not pointed at a person, but there are people in front of you. The people to the sides are technically in front of you. So pay attention to where your muzzle is in relation to the actual firing line itself. It's almost it's a politeness move. Safety, obviously, but it's polite to other shooters. I don't want somebody kind of off to my side, 3 feet behind me, plunking away with a handgun. So
God, that's scary. It's almost like there's a glass wall in front of you. Your muzzle needs to be touching that all the time. Yep. Yeah, don't go behind that. Just got to be right there.
That's a great visual.
Another thing to remember is that a lot of people don't know this, is that if you're at the range and you're new to going to the range, you may not realize that a lot of ranges allow you to rent a gun. Mm-hmm. And so you don't really have to own a gun to go to the range the first time. So you could actually, and I would be very surprised if you weren't greeted with effusive open arms and smiles, you could just simply go to a range and say, I've never shot before. I would really like to look at guns and learn to shoot. And with most, especially the more professional ranges, you'll be welcomed. And they'll walk you through the basic safety things. They'll probably rent you or loan you hearing protection, eye protection. If you buy a box of ammunition and you rent a gun, I'm sure someone will take you out to the firing line and get you kind of up to speed on the basics. And that might actually be a really good first experience for somebody. You know?
Yep. Can we talk about outdoor ranges a little bit?
Yeah, it's a whole nother set of things, It is, because some are monitored and very structured and have, our range safety officers kind of calling the conditions, and others are more free for all, honor systems. So there are definitely some things to pay attention to there. And I'll start food. And I struggle with this one because it can be really fun to shoot food. Like, think of Spam. Picture in your mind.
Going with that.
I was wondering
Spam,
too.
Right. Yeah. And I think we can all agree that Spam needs to be shot. Right.
No.
It does need to be shot. I'm not saying you should do it actually, I'm saying you shouldn't do it at the range because it makes a big mess and attracts critters. But in theory, right? So, but a serious point, it's really fun to bring watermelons and cantaloupes and Spam to the outdoor range and blow it all to smithereens. And hey, if it's your property, knock yourself out. But if it's a range shared by public, it makes a giant mess. You leave and go home, and then some volunteer is going to be cleaning up all that muck.
The old grumpy range guy that looks like me. He's got an old crumpled up hat and everything, and he's all sunburned. And he kind of squints at you. And in the old days, they always had a cigarette in their lip, and they were always grumpy, kind of jerky guys with nothing fun. It's because they had to take care of the damn range and clean up the messes and the target frames that people shot up. And well, there's a whole other category.
Well, before we get there, I was going to reiterate, because around here in the Midwest, we have a lot of public shooting ranges, but they're unattended. They'll be on fish and wildlife areas, or even state game areas, whatever you got in your area. But most of them are unattended, and they're almost always trashed. There's brass hip deep. There's shot up improvised targets of any kind imaginable.
Old computers.
Exactly.
Toilets.
Exactly. Covered in bits of Spam and watermelon gunk.
Sorry.
Yeah. And again, if you're allowed to shoot it, I love shooting that kind of stuff too, but clean up your damn mess.
Yeah.
I'm the farthest thing from a eco warrior or whatever, but I was taught by my grandmother, you pick up after yourself, and even if you don't want that brass, clean it up. The brass, the empty boxes, the remains of target gunk, and food wrappers. You see that a lot too. Guy, where do these people come from? Because I rarely see the guy doing it, but it's always there, it seems like.
Yeah. If you got to shoot bottles full of liquid, make them plastic. Glass is just a nightmare on public ranges, broken glass.
I must be blessed though, because we have a lot of really beautiful public ranges which are virtually all unattended or untended, here in Missouri. And for some reason, I don't know if it's cultural or something, social pressure here or something, but everybody's always very polite and everybody's, respectful, and they make it a point about cleaning up the range when they get there, if there's a little bit of trash or something, or when they leave. And there's usually a contingent of local shooters who sort of adopt the ranges. Yeah. And then, they'll have hey, let's go clean up the range this weekend. So I think it may be because the state supports it strongly. In other words, they're really pro shooting. They really want you to use the ranges. Yeah. And they'll actually staff ranges sometime, and they'll say things like, hey, if you're a new shooter, bring your guns to the range on Saturday. We're going to have staff there, and they'll help you, to get through it. But I think the common thread through a lot of this is just the fact that, who is it, Brent, or one of us always says, don't be that guy, And so, to err on the side of safety is always the best. If you don't know, ask. And I think use that time as a time of learning and fun, but don't let yourself be so intimidated you don't go to the range.
Yeah. And there was another topic I wanted to talk about, and that's improvised ranges, because I don't know what you guys, youth experience was, but around here in my area, everybody went to Papaw's farm or down to the old gravel pit and shot. And that's probably where I've seen some of the worst or most aggravating things happen. Trash is a big one. Trespassing is a big problem. And it's, and again, maybe it's a cultural thing in our area, but any gravel pit that is not, cordoned off by razor wire will have a road down next to it, and it'll just be littered with shell casings and broken bottles and trash and all that. So trespassing, don't trespass. Clean up after yourself if you are allowed to use an area, and just be very mindful of backstops, because in the Midwest, for example, it's pretty flat, and somebody goofing around and launching a 308 over the dirt pile down next to the creek, that can have severe consequences. So it's wonderful to have an area like that. And honestly, that's probably where I do, aside from the police range that I have access to, probably the rest of my shooting around here, the fun shooting stuff, is going out to somebody's farm and picking a safe backstop, a creek bank or something that we know is, safe, and just, doing some fun stuff maybe you can't do on a square range. But again, safety's got to drive everything. And it's that kind of stuff that, again, having been a policeman, we've answered the occasional call of a bullet comes through somebody's house. And it was from somebody that wasn't being careful, probably shooting out on the farm. And, that makes a rabid anti-gunner. That's all that does. You put a .308 through somebody's kitchen, even though, as pro guns as I am, I'd be pretty upset by that. And even though you're out in the woods or something, you're still an ambassador for shooting, because 5 miles beyond is where you could potentially put a piece of lead. So you got to be so careful about that.
Well, safety in general, I think it's not enough to be safe. I mean, one of the things I kind of rant about a lot is you actually have to be melodramatic about safety. And what I mean by that is I can know that I'm safe and tinkering with something that's 6 inches or a foot away from my gun on a cold range, right? But if I'm a good citizen with good etiquette and manners, I will be melodramatic about that. I will step 3 feet away. I will make it very, very clear to a person 50 feet down the line that I'm being safe. I want them to see that, from a distance.
Yep.
So
that's a very good point.
Think of how other people are watching what you do.
Yeah.
And don't forget those action flags and stuff. And if you don't know what those are, and you can do it with anything, do it with an old handkerchief if you want to, but they make these like blaze orange and yellow little plastic inserts. And so if your action rifle is open, you insert it into the chamber, and that shows everybody that your action's open and the chamber's empty. And you can do that with probably the little orange chamber insert that came with your brand new semi-auto pistol that you recently bought as part of the 10 million NICS people that just got approved in the last little while. So keep your head on. And I really love that. Be melodramatic about it. Be overly sensitive to that. Something else that new shooters can do, let's say if you have your gun or if you don't have your gun yet even, is you can get yourself an airsoft pistol or one of the new very high quality BB guns or airsoft guns. Yeah, like that. Exactly. And
that almost looked like a setup.
Yeah, it was. He didn't even know this beforehand. But what that will allow you to do is sort of practice your range etiquette. And I know it sounds corny, maybe, but not really. In other words, think about how am I going to get it out of the bag? How do I control the muzzle? What accessories am I bringing? And if you could shoot in your backyard, do a little backyard shooting and practice that. Safety, distance, backstop. Because trust me, boy, we used to call it time in grade. The more time you have doing that kind of practice, then the more comfortable you will be with it. Yep. And then, so maybe the third or fourth or fifth time you go to the range, now you'll really be able to focus on your skill, on sight pictures and trigger squeeze, stuff like that, rather than you're just there going, I'm at the range. I don't know what to do. I'm really scared,
And a lot of our audience is very experienced shooters, and I hope you've stuck with us to this point since we've kind of been focusing on the new shooters. But if you are that experienced shooter, make it a point today to take somebody to the range. Be that mentor. We can't hammer on that word enough. We have such a golden opportunity here with all these literally millions of new shooters who are buying guns and don't have the first clue as to what they're doing. So we can make them good shooters, good hunters, Second Amendment advocates by just taking a little time and being very patient and taking them to the range, showing them a safe time and a good time. And when you see that gleam in their eye when they finally get, hey, this is really cool and all these people are really cool and I understand now why folks are fighting for this, that's a win. That is a total win. And it's everybody's responsibility.
Well, that's a good point. Mentoring is such an important part of it. I had a reader not too long ago ask me about what targets should they use. And I think rather than get caught up in that, something that I like to use, which I do a lot here in my backyard, is paper plates. And so you just go to the local, Sam's Club or someplace and buy one of those 300 counts of those real cheap, thin 8 or 10 inch paper plates. They make the best targets because they're cheap, they're easy, they're disposable. You can throw them away after 3 bullet holes if you want to, and you're not out a huge amount of money. And the round circle sort of naturally makes you concentrate on a good aiming point. And you can also have some fun. You could put a small circle in it. You could put multiple dots on it and shoot at each of the little dots or something like that. But check with the range if you're going to an indoor range. But generally, those white paper plates, and they make really good 100-yard rifle targets, both with iron sights or or with crosshairs or red dots or something. But don't get too caught up on, I have to buy these certain targets, and I have to buy this certain ammunition. And I think your goal is to just be brave and get out there and do it. And as Brent was saying earlier, and just don't be a slob about it, clean up after your mess and whatnot. So,
yeah. And I had one final point, if I guess we're getting to that time, but don't be afraid to leave because I've been in one or two situations where, you get all ready, you've got your ammo and, you've put everything aside, you drive to the range, which may be quite a distance, and you get there and there's maybe one guy that's being a total knucklehead, or maybe it's a range that's just being run really poorly and people are doing dangerous stuff. It really sucks to have to turn around and go home without having fired a shot, but it is worth your life to do that. So even if you're a novice, if you see stuff that you're like, oh, wow, I've already been flashed with a gun 3 different times, just leave, just go. It's not worth it.
That's really good advice, because people they get embarrassed. They don't want to make a scene. They don't know. Exactly. It's only your life. It's okay to be embarrassed.
Exactly. And
you can be discreet. Pack up and walk away. Yeah.
And I would say the corollary to that is don't argue with folks, because, it doesn't hurt to say, you just flashed me with your muzzle. And if, as Roy said, the response should be, oh, I'm really sorry. That was an accident on my part. I'll do better. If it's, well, you mind your own damn business, I'm gone. I'm out of there. Yeah. It's not worth it. That guy obviously doesn't care about you, doesn't care about safety, really doesn't care about anything except himself. So that's not the guy I want to be standing shoulder to shoulder with on a firing line. So, it's only happened once or twice that I can think of for me personally, but there are times when you just look around and go, this is not a good place to be. I just need to go.
And sometimes you get the guy, indoor ranges are famous for this. You'll get a guy right next to you and he's got a ported Smith & Wesson 500 Magnum, and he's insisting on shooting it again and again and again and again and again. Yeah. Or somebody has one of the little short-barreled 308, AR platform pistols, which are really, really loud. And they're next to you and they're blam, 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 blam. It's really hard to concentrate. Yeah. And so keep that in mind. So if you're one of those guys with one of those guns, is be discreet. Or, if you've got a brand new shooter next to you in the bay, well, give them a chance, shoot your 9mm for a little while. Don't shoot your 500, just be cognizant of what's going on around you and be a good, what's the ambassador, be an ambassador for shooting. So people say, oh, that Fred, oh no, he's a really nice guy. He'll help you. Be that guy or girl. So.
Well, what's that crazy notion? It's been around a year or two that we seem to have forgotten. Oh, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. I know it's crazy.
Never heard it.
Silly.
I know.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
You and 249 million other people, but not the readers and audience of Guns Magazine, American Handgunner, and Gun Cranks Live.
You guys are.
We've got it going on.
Yeah.
So, guys, I think we've touched on this pretty well. I hope we've answered a lot of your questions. And if you've got more questions, obviously, get with us. Send us an email. That's editor@americanhandgunner.com and editor@gunsmagazine.com. Like I said, the cards, letters, and missives have been coming in quickly and often. And even our corporate overlords, of which we only have like one or two at our company, but they're pleased. This thing is rolling good. We're having a good time doing it. I'm very happy with where we're at. So I hope you are too. And it seems that's the case with the feedback we've been getting from readers. So please keep it coming. And of course, always check out AmericanHandgunner.com and GunsMagazine.com. And here's the wildest notion of all: subscribe to our wonderful print magazines, because nobody can stop you from reading those. And we also we got to put our weekly plug in, our ebooks. Tom, you want to talk about those?
Yeah, we've got some new stuff available on Amazon.com in hardback or ebook format. The current one out, we just released about a month ago, is the DIY Guns. So if you ever want to do any projects, a little customization, a little tweaking, fixing, souping up of handguns and rifles, check it out.
Yeah. And I just thought of something, and this is a total left turn. I didn't talk to the other guys about this. Is there anything we want to tease, Roy, coming up in August, or shall we not?
You mean as far as like pending books and things? Oh, the other thing. No, we'll let that trail for a while.
Well, don't you hate it when people do that? I know something really important, but I can't share it with you.
That's right.
Yeah, thanks, Brent.
Yeah.
That's called a teaser, man. We got to do that kind of stuff. But no, we'll have some significant news here probably in a couple of weeks, and that'll be a show in and of itself, I think. So let us know. Let us know what you want to see and hear from this show of ours, this little show that we put together. And like I said, it's going great guns, and we're having a good time. And we've even been discussing, we got to get a green room, and I've already made the point. I want free range pastries and vegan water, on the catering table. So I've already been accused of being challenging to work with. That coming
you're getting free range spam is what you're getting.
That's right.
I'm good with that. I love spam. You make fun of me. I think I could live in Hawaii because I like spam.
They do like that there. Yeah, I used to live in Hawaii.
Pork and fat and salt. What's wrong with that?
Do we have any idea what we're going to talk about on the next show? I think we have a long list of ideas, but have we? Maybe
we should plan that stuff before we come on the air.
I don't know. Yeah. So tune in next week and we'll talk about something.
Something completely surprising, even to us at this point. So make sure you share this on all your social media channels and let your friends know. That's how our audience is growing by leaps and bounds, because people are telling their friends, hey, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, check out these knuckleheads. They seem to be enjoying what they're doing. And truly, that's our mission. The world is an ugly, ugly place right now. I think everybody would agree. And there's enough of that. So we're hoping just to have a little fun and relaxation and enjoy gun stuff. So on behalf of my fellow gun cranks, Roy Huntington and Tom McHale, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat. Hope you've enjoyed what we've been talking about. And please join us next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And you'll see more Gun Cranks Live. See you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Gun Cranks audio podcast. If you'd like to see the video from today's episode, check out our YouTube channel of the same name. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the Guns Magazine podcast and check out our other great publications, AmericanHandgunner.com, GunsMagazine.com, and AmericanCop.com.